Welcome to our Saturday simulcast. Actually, Sunday morning, and depending on how you look at the time change here, which is going to happen in an hour or so, it's a little bit after midnight Eastern time after the Boilermakers 41-13 loss at the Big House. Michigan, Purdue did some good things early on, stayed in the game maybe later than more than we may have all thought. I don't know. That's my view, but I'm going to start with Tom Dienhart. I guess just one thing I'd want to get any reaction from the head football coach, Ryan Walters, or anything that happened in postgame that of note. Or was it pretty much status quo following the Boilermakers loss?
I asked him about, obviously, the comments Thursday, and he stood by everything he said, just calling a spade. I think were the words that he said, was telling the truth. And he was surprised, guys, by the stir nationally that his comments made. He said he woke up Friday morning, I think, got a cup of coffee, turned on Sports Center, and he saw that he was on the ticker. And at that point, he realized, hey, I guess what I said really stirred the pot, so to speak. So, yeah, that was a huge storyline, as you know, entering this game tonight. And a lot of questions about it. Purdue did change their signals, didn't have any trouble adapting to new signals. I think Mike sent a note to us right after the game. You guys noticed the post-game handshake, right?
Yeah, I was going to ask Mike, but yeah.
It wasn't an embrace. But I'll let Mike talk about that. But, yeah, Alan, you're right. There were some good things. This thing started off 17-0.
Yeah.
Michigan scored touchdowns on his first two possessions and kicked a field goal. Looked like they're going to run away with it. And I think 5 of the next 6 possessions, Purdue turned it back, only gave up a field goal. It was 20-6 at halftime. Purdue just couldn't penetrate this offense. Ryan Walters said in the postgame, he didn't think Michigan had given up 15 points all year. Or I was going to look up
13.
what the most points they've given up all year in any one game.
Yeah.
10, well, it's point me the 13 points tonight, still on the scoreboard here, don't look too bad, right? I know the last touchdown was kind of a junk touchdown, but still. His point, too, was this is a very good defense. And Purdue was up against it, guys. The offensive line, I mean, come on. Ben Farrell, Daniel Johnson, at one point they had Gus Hartwood playing tackle.
Tackle, yeah.
So, again, they're hamstrung. But a loss is a loss. Michigan covered, but still, even it sounds fine to say at 41-13, Purdue could at least walk out of here feeling like it did some good things, right?
Right. Michigan didn't cover, right? It was 32.
Right? So you're right. They didn't cover. Yeah, because it was a touchdown late. That's right. They didn't cover.
Well, Mike, I was an expert square dancer at Burtsfield back in the day, and what Ryan Walters and Jim Harbaugh, that was an Alaman left, Alaman right. I mean, that was all it was, in my view. Mike, you always have that was part of the show today, but I thought also I actually really enjoyed Todd Blackledge's comments. I thought I learned some things about what he thought about Hudson Card. In his happy feet and some things that he was challenged with, but he also talked about some of his potential. I would have happy feet too if I was playing quarterback in that situation, but just your take on what you saw from the Big House in the Boilermakers loss.
Well, I mean, not really a surprise. Not a surprise that Michigan got out early and kind of suffocated Purdue. Their defense suffocated Purdue early on. But I thought overall the defense probably played as well as it could, and and we've seen the trend of the defense actually, keeping Purdue in games. I know that the score of the Nebraska game was 31-14, but they scored on a blocked field goal. So I think the defense has kind of made some strides. We kind of know what the defense is. They have an identity, and they're kind of playing to it. And they've got some legitimate playmakers on the defensive side of the ball. They don't have enough, but they've got some. They're going to keep. I mean, they held Michigan to 110 rushing yards,
right?
And that's their bread and butter. That's what they do. They just they got a bunch of their plays through the air. Offensively, we know what it is. They have problems on the offensive line because they don't have enough healthy bodies. They don't have enough playmakers. Hudson Card's been inconsistent, and what they talked about on the broadcast is accurate. Where that's a situation he has to fix in the off season, and now that Purdue kind of is in the off-season mode a little bit, I know they have 3 games and they're going to prepare and they're going to work to win those games. But, these next 3 weeks, I think, are important to, kind of get out of some of the bad habits you've been doing this season.
Yeah.
Kind of set a tone and a foundation as you move ahead. Maybe see some players you haven't seen yet, but all with the idea that you still want to win games. Is there any chance that Jim Harbaugh may have coached his last game tonight?
I don't know. I mean, there were a lot of rumors about that heading into this game. A lot of them being, at least on our colleagues at the Wolverine.com, were certainly stuff on their message boards. I don't know. I guess that's a dumb answer because I can't be definitive about anything. But boy, it would surprise me still. But I guess they got to do something. But we think we can all agree on they're not going to disqualify Michigan and tell them not to play the rest of the year. I don't see
Alan, the Big Ten schools, the ADs, these other coaches want a pound of flesh, so to speak, right?
Yeah.
I think the commissioner's given him his ear. And there was some talk. I think ESPN even had a report that they thought there was going to be a suspension forthcoming for Harbaugh. Talking to Chris Ballas and some other people tonight in the press box, something could happen as soon as this coming week.
Yeah.
Will it be 2 games? Will it be the rest of the season? And the point is, though, guys, if the Big Ten does come down with some type of a suspension, will Michigan appeal it with some type of an injunction just to sort of kick the can down the road, if you will, so Harbaugh can still coach these last games? Because they got some big ones left, right? Penn State next week, and of course Ohio State coming here in a couple weeks too. So maybe we'll get some type of news this week. If a suspension does get handed down again, it will be interesting to see how Michigan reacts to that suspension.
And Carm's spider senses are about as good as anybody's, and Tom's aren't far behind. So if you're sensing it, and even if you're smelling it from West Lafayette, maybe there's something to it. All right.
I know. I mean, anything that happens between the Big Ten and Michigan will be a joint effort. I mean, the Big Ten's going to. What really needs to happen is Michigan needs to suspend Jim Harbaugh.
Yeah, I think that was
needs to do it. Michigan needs to have some teeth to this.
Mm-hmm.
There appears to be enough evidence that this went on for at least 2 years, maybe longer, and the Big Ten and Michigan have to do something with this. They just can't let it slide. As we know, the NCAA won't get to it for another 10 years.
Yeah.
No, I agree with you. I have a hard. I don't know, man. Maybe it's a suspension of the coach, and maybe you're right. Maybe if Michigan I don't think you'd call it a preemptive strike this late in the game, but it would be a strike of sorts to not, obviously a huge one if Harbaugh can't coach against Penn State next week in that big noon game in Happy Valley. It would be. All right, I want to talk a little bit about Purdue. That's what we're here for, but also just 2 things. One, I want to get a little bit on Nick Scorton and Kyden Jenkins again. To me, they did it against the big boys today. I was very impressed by the way they played, and wanted to get your comments on that. And just, I'm looking at the last 3 games here, and yes, Minnesota loses today. Northwestern and Iowa barely combined for a total of 310 yards, and Iowa wins that game in Wrigley Field by hitting the ball into not on Sheffield, but that kick or field goal made it to the bleachers into the Northwestern band for Iowa to win that game. And Indiana, maybe the most impressive of the bunch, beating Wisconsin today. Obviously, Purdue's going to struggle to win any one of those 3s, but it's really, really important. It's something that there's a foundation to build from. Jenkins, Scorton, Thieneman give you some of that. What do you think, Mike? I'll start with you on this. What the importance of something's good? If you're Ryan Walters, you need something good to come out of these last 3 weeks, even though you're no longer bowl eligible.
Well, as I mentioned, they're going to play to win these games, as they should, but they have to. It's playing to win, but also you have to have an eye to 2024 a little bit as far as with another potential fumble almost happened tonight. So they've got to cleanse some of these bad habits that they've created this year out of their system during these last 3 weeks and kind of start over as you go into 2024. and we don't know what I'm not a big believer in offset season momentum, and now I don't think it exists because we have no idea what the roster will look like next year.
That's
we don't
true.
know who's in, we don't know who's leaving. So if you think you have momentum, it gets taken away when 5 players transfer. So I think Purdue needs to, kind of get itself right a little bit here, finish out the season strong. They're gonna struggle to win any of these 3 games just based on how they're playing right now. But I think they need to have some good things happen, whether it's some more developmental players. Maybe Hudson Card takes a step forward with some of the things that he's struggled with this year. Maccabee gets on track by hanging onto the ball. I mean, your offensive line is a mess. They're doing the best they can with what they have. And, defensively, you've got pieces there that can really provide an anchor these last 3 games.
Yeah, I guess I look at this, and Tom, I'll come to you, but I look at it from a true fan interest and marketing standpoint, and that's where I'm probably. I agree with you, Mike. I think you gotta have other things in terms of momentum, but you do. I learned today, at least from Nate Barrett, only 2,000 tickets left for next week. That surprised me a great deal, and yet, so I thought there'd be a lot, and there will be some empty seats next week. But my point is, that momentum the fan base needs to feel like it's going in the right direction, even though you're right. We're going to see how many. We may see 10 to 12 new players in the lineup. I'm sure we will from that standpoint. But Tom, how do you view this? And I think, Mike, you're right on that momentum thing, but go ahead.
Yeah, you're right. Ryan talked tonight about a few guys that saw the field basically for the first time. Ahmad Branch made the travel roster. He's a true freshman from Festus, Missouri, a wide receiver. Said Zion Steptoe got some reps. The former receiver who is now a cornerback. We've seen another true freshman, George Byrne, play a handful of snaps in recent weeks as well. So he talked about maybe getting a look at some of these guys if they earned it. He said if they earn it down the stretch these last 3 games. He talked exactly what Mike said. He wants to win these games. He's not going to play guys just to play guys. He wants to try to still win these games, obviously, too. So, yeah, and again, at Mike's point, these rosters almost get reinvented on an annual basis now with the way college sports are set up. So, who knows who's going to transfer? Some schools are going to come after Nick Scorton. I mean, I don't know. Is Jenkins going to come back for a 5th year or not? He's eligible, too, if he wants. So, there's always going to be guys other schools are going to try to get as well. Who's going to come in from the portal? So, yeah, just a lot of moving parts here. But Purdue wants to obviously finish strong here and try to sort through the guys on their roster now. And if they can, like I said, get a look at some of these younger guys, too, down the stretch. There should be some opportunities. But like you said, guys, Minnesota, Northwestern, Indiana aren't going to be turnovers or pushovers. And we were talking, and who do you think, if you had to pick, who's the 4th best team in the Big Ten? Who is the 4th best team in the Big Ten? Think about that. It's quite a conundrum.
It really is.
Do they have to?
Yeah, I don't know. Rutgers? I don't know.
It's not Wisconsin. Not Wisconsin.
No.
Not Iowa. Is it Iowa?
Iowa. No.
Maybe it is Rutgers.
I don't know. That's a great question. I think the other storyline, and Tom's covered recruiting, and we're not going to go down this rabbit hole, but a big thing, too, is just trying to hang on to. I don't have any intel about guys that could flip, but there's so much that's got to go into keeping that class and through December, getting them signed, getting them to West Lafayette, and certainly. Again, that roster is going to, you got open season on your linebacking core. Let's be honest, in terms of what the Boilermakers need. There's open season on the offensive line, with a couple of exceptions. I know that if Moose and Bo get back, then maybe that'll be fine. But yeah, it's But I still think you want to win. We all agree that Purdue would help Purdue a lot not to finish the season 2-10 and give at least the fan base some hope that things are heading in the right direction. So the recruiting class will do that if they can keep it intact and still be ranked, so to speak. I think that can help. So from that standpoint, all right, Mike, I'll give you guys both a parting shot. Or a comment to what anything else that you were thinking about something, Mike? I could tell. So you were going to make a comment of some kind. It's not about We thought early on we were going to be talking about women's basketball during this, so it's to UCLA. So we've done better than that. But let's what say you here as you close this thing down?
Well, again, I don't think the fact that Purdue kind of hung with Michigan, I think is obviously a positive. I thought they did some good things defensively, but in the big picture, this what happened tonight doesn't matter a whole lot, because now you're going to face three teams that are kind of in your weight class in the Big Ten.
Yeah.
And how do you match up with those three teams? And now that we're out of divisions, you're not going to see those teams every year. But these are your peers in the Big Ten. How do you match up against them? How do you play against them? Can you sneak out a win or two in these last three to kind of just feel good about yourself as you head to the off season? So, I think that'll be the objective. That's what they'll want to do. But we'll see if they have the horses to do it, because Minnesota is an extremely physical team and has given Purdue problems over the years. And Northwestern, at its best, has been pretty good this year. And Indiana's kind of gained some momentum here over the last couple of weeks. So, Purdue's got three tough games it has to play, and you just want to see some more improvement. Individual improvement and maybe individual development over the last 3 weeks.
All right, Tom, I will say this. If I was an odds maker, I'm not sure Purdue's a favorite in any one of the three down the stretch. Maybe depends what happens to IU, I suppose. But give us your final thoughts here before let you get back to work and get you out of Michigan Stadium.
Yeah, just again, trying to finish with I guess they're on a 4-game losing streak now. The offense has scored 14, 7, 14, and 13 points the last 4 games. I'm not sure if that's going to improve that much with the offensive line being so banged up it is. Maybe against these upcoming opponents it can, but you like to get I guess the bad taste out of your mouth and at least get a good feeling in everybody's mind as you're heading toward that off season. And try to look at some of the young guys on the roster we talked about earlier. We saw even another 2 freshmen, Jimmy Liston, play a little bit tonight on the offensive line. So maybe we'll see more of that moving forward. So again, just a chance to evaluate the roster and try to build some confidence in developing at least a winning edge in these last 3 games. So like you said, Alan, you don't finish the season 2-10.
All right. I think that's a fair assessment. I think this may be our last midnight version of the year. We've had about 3 or 4. And that's enough. I don't think we're going to have a 7:30 game the last 3 weeks. So we know next week's at 3:30, and I can't imagine Purdue Northwestern will be. But second I say that, it could happen, I suppose. So, all right, guys, thanks so much for your time and combat pay for this time of night, but I appreciate that. Tom, safe travels back to West Lafayette tomorrow, and today actually, and we'll look forward to what you say and write throughout the week. So guys, have a great rest of your evening. Thank you to the Union Club Hotel. And a reminder, too, that you can, in fact, subscribe to goldenblack.com. In fact, we really like you to do so. It's a really Tom's work, Brian's work, Mike's work, something worth subscribing or becoming a member. We hope you'll consider doing that. So have a good rest of your evening or your morning, and we'll talk next week after the Purdue Minnesota game.